Welcome, everybody, to the live stream. It is a Friday. It feels like it, too. Hope your week has gone well. I know we've had a holiday weekend since we've been together, but we're very happy to have you joining us here on this Friday afternoon. Joining us here in the Huckabee Theater, just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, is Pam Case, our senior producer for The Huckabee Show. She's going to be reading questions, and you're going to be sending them. How about that? Did you know that? Well, now you do. Send your questions in the chat. If you'd like a little more visibility, send in a super chat. Bumps it up to the top of the line. Moderators watch the chat. They send us the questions. We do as many as we can get to. But of course, we also splice in a lot of amazing videos of the week. Some of them are disturbing, some of them are funny, and some of them are just revealing. And we have a pile of them today to get to. We also have some updates on the investigations into the Biden crime family's corruption, some big ones. The debt ceiling bill got passed this week. We'll talk about it and a little insight into how it may affect you. And we have an exclusive look at what really caused Joe Biden's fall after speaking at the Air Force Academy this week. That and much more. Well, Pam, you know, I know we normally do a pre-show poll, but we also have something even more special, don't we?
I think we do, because it's not time to, I don't have the poll yet, so.
But you know what we do have?
Maybe something special for somebody in the control room?
I think so. I think we have someone in the control room who's having a birthday.
Happy birthday, Johnny!
Johnny Livesey is having a birthday today. You know, that's him in the pictures. You see him also with his wife and his two boys.
That's Linnell and their two boys, Jack and Luke.
Yeah, Johnny is actually 72 years old. He just
he's looking mighty fine for his age. I don't know what he does. A little older than you and me, but anyway, looking good. Johnny helps us with the pre-show polls and a lot of the producing behind the scenes. So before the pre-show poll, we wanted to give a shout out to one of our favorite people. So happy birthday.
And you wondered how come the banks were closed and you couldn't make a deposit and the post office wasn't delivering mail and schools are all shut down. It's in honor of Johnny's birthday.
Yeah. So happy birthday to you, our dear friend.
Thanks, Johnny. You pretty much shut the whole world down just because you had a birthday. Big whoopee deal. He's not actually 72.
It's more like,
obviously not.
Yeah, a little younger than us, but yeah.
A lot younger.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
A lot younger.
Okay, but we do have a pre-show poll whenever we're ready for that.
Let's do it.
All right. Today's poll, Gov, well, over 300 folks voting before we started today. What do you think caused Biden's fall? Okay, so we're all familiar with what happened. So, number one, tripped on a sandbag. Number two, a gentle breeze pushed him over. Distracted by hair, or something else. And that something else, I don't think we're going to hear about that until later on. But I will tell you this, so far, a gentle breeze is leading at 35%, and distracted by hair, 11%, tripped on a sandbag with 19%. 35%, something else, and we don't even know what that is yet. I don't. We'll see what happens.
We may find out before the live stream is over.
So stick around.
Not to tease you or anything, but there's a good chance you may find out there was another option, and we'll get to it later. Our top comment from last week's live stream is from Judy, and I hope I pronounced this right. I'm not sure, I think the Z is silent, and it would be Wagwizen.
Okay, I'll trust you.
I don't, that looks Polish to me, but I don't know. And I've never been able to pronounce Polish names very well, despite the fact I've been to Poland several times. Love the country, love the people. I just can't pronounce the names.
All right, well,
so, anyway,
all the same.
But Judy, who said, quote, Biden shouldn't be allowed to take any more laws, to make any more laws or sign anything else. He doesn't know what he's doing.
All right.
Increasingly, I think she's right. I don't know that he knows. Well, we always have a question for you this week. We'd love to get your responses. Do you think Joe Biden's falls are indicative of a bigger issue of fitness for the job? So leave your answers in the chat or the comments section below. We will read them throughout the course of today's live stream. We'll also even continue to read them after the live stream. If you've not subscribed to the channel, boy, this is the best time to do it, just as we're getting started. When you touch that subscribe button, be sure to hit the notification bell so we can let you know when we're loading new content, and like and share with others. That's always a wonderful thing for you to do. This has been a pretty interesting week, and just today, FBI Director Christopher Wray has said he will now give the Form 1023 that Congress has been demanding for months, and he has been stonewalling them. And they were going to charge him with contempt of Congress. And I think they realized they're serious. They're going to do it. Now, the Justice Department would never follow through on it, but it's a bad look for the FBI director to be ignoring the very law that he and his agency are supposed to enforce. It's just awful. And Congress has every right to investigate and to do the oversight job they have. So for the FBI to say, no, we're not going to give that evidence to you, that's unconscionable.
Right.
In the same way that if the FBI comes to your house or my house and says, hey, we have a warrant, we're going to do a search, we say, nah, we don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. I think my defense now would be, hey, if the FBI doesn't have to comply with the law, why don't I? Mm-hmm. You know, they're the law enforcement people. Anyway, so he says now he's going to give it. Let's see if he gives it to them unredacted. By the way, this weekend, when Josh Hawley is on our show, we may get some good answers about what's going on with all of that. Anyway, this is just a little bit of information on what's going on with the Justice Department whistleblowers. They've come forward, and they say there has been serious mishandling of information. Let's watch.
Sources tell CBS News Justice Department whistleblowers have raised concerns over the FBI's handling of Hunter Biden's investigation, or rather an investigation into Hunter Biden. Allegations include irregular handling of evidence and a claim that, quote, standard investigatory practices were not being followed. They also claim that disparaging evidence related to President Biden's son was labeled as misinformation. The FBI said it has no comment.
Oh, no, they don't have any comment. Well, we've got a few, and pretty much we just made them. And that is that the FBI doesn't have the authority to tell Congress to pound sand. Elected people in our form of government are the highest form of the law. Not appointed people, not employed people, elected people, because it's always been believed since the time of our founding that there is accountability in election that you do not have in any other form of structure or authority. And maybe Christopher Wray got around to reading the Constitution and found out how that's supposed to work. I don't know, but I'm glad he did. There is confirmation, at least, that the document exists. For a while, the FBI kind of pretended, well, we don't know if there is a document or not. Now they've not only admitted they have it, but they are going to give it to James Comer of Kentucky, who is the chairman of the Oversight Committee. And you see a little bit of that document there. Unless you have been completely living in a cave somewhere, you are aware that this week the big story was the debt ceiling fight in Congress. The bill got through the House, then it got through the Senate. Joe Biden is going to sign it. So we have averted yet another crisis that should never have been a crisis. We've known this was coming. But for over 100 days, Joe Biden didn't even have a conversation with Kevin McCarthy, the House Speaker. And that's very troubling to say, oh, we've got to get this done. But you wait till the last minute to do it. This is like the college student who parties all semester, and then come finals, he does all-nighters trying to bone up on his final exams and can't imagine why he's flunking most of his courses. Pretty sad. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to show you there is some talk that some House members may even vote to vacate the House Speaker's chair. I don't think that really will be a serious threat, but anyway, here's to that.
Perry, Jackson Richmond, Epoch Times. Were the bill to go forward, would you file a motion to vacate the chair?
Look, we are focused. I'll let each member speak for themselves. But for me, I am focused on defeating this bill. What happens post that and the agreements that we have, we will decide once we've determined the disposition of this bill and its finality. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I mean, I know there is a lot of discontent among the more conservative members of the House caucus. I understand it. I'm not excited about this bill, more tolerant of it than, like, thrilled. But, you know, at this point, we don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. And until we get the Senate and the White House we have to be a little more patient than we will have to be then. And then we need to be very impatient. Yeah. We need to be expecting bigger and better things. It's interesting, the administration continues to try to say that this is going to bring some level of relief to the American people. It's not. And I'm getting the impression, you saw that report we had from CBS, CNBC this week has a conversation with one of the administration economic officials, and they point out that, you know, you keep talking about all this stuff about what a great job you're doing, but the people aren't feeling it. And this is not coming from Fox News. Let's watch.
I think we did have record revenue, tax revenue, in the last couple of years. So I'm not sure why that indicates we need to work on that side of the equation.
The spike in revenue that we saw last year has actually started to come back down to the 15-year average level based on the most recent data.
That might be capital gains. But
number two,
nobody's made any money in the stock market.
I want to be clear about something, which is that the president put in place incentives for companies to invest in America.
It was very, very well put. The point of all of that was Joe Kernan from CNBC was saying, look, we've had record tax revenues. You guys want to raise taxes. Why would you want to do that? You got more money coming in than we've ever had in the history of the country. So it's not that taxes are too low. Taxes seem to be pumping into money. But maybe, just maybe, there's too much spending. And then the official from the Biden White House says, oh, well, yeah, but, you know, it could get worse. We've had some tough times. And then Joe rightly points out, well, the recession has busted the stock market. There are no big capital gains revenues going on because nobody's making money with their stocks right now. That's not a positive thing. That's a very negative thing. And it was pretty revealing. And he did not let that guy get away with just pretending that they're doing a great job.
Yeah, well done.
All right. The other big story of the week, if you've been following, particularly the last couple of days, Joe Biden, President of the United States, went out to the Air Force Academy to make a little speech on the graduation of those Air Force Academy grads. And it did not go well. First of all, as is often the case when he goes to make a speech, he didn't seem to know where he was to go and if he was to sit down. Let's watch. I love this little shuffle that he always does. It's like, oh, I got called. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Most people have never been at one of these events, presidential event. I've been at a number of them. Every single step is not only choreographed and carefully planned. There are marks with big yellow tape that point the direction that every person is to go. There is nothing left to chance. This is all so very carefully scripted down to the inch. And there's an arrow, like where you walk out on the stage and you follow that arrow. And where you stop, there's a double tape. And you stop there. And then it shows you where you go at. I mean, that's what I don't understand. He can't even follow these very explicit pathways. I mean, they have to send this Air Force lady out there to grab him and to kind of pull him away from, I guess, jumping off the stage. Maybe he thought he was at a rock concert and he was going to do a mosh pit. I don't know what this is, but it's just disturbing. Anyway, so in his speech, he says a few things that we're still trying to decipher. We want to play them for you because maybe you can tell us what the heck was he talking about.
I met in the Oval Office, in my office, with 8 leading scientists in the area of AI. Some are very worried that AI can actually overtake human thinking and planning. So we got a lot to deal with.
Speech therapy, maybe, that would be a lot to do. Absolutely incoherent. But it wasn't the only time in the speech where he seemed to have completely got lost from what he was supposed to be saying. Here's another example.
It wasn't all push-ups and cramming for Prague Week, though to set the Guinness Book of Records, world records, most simultaneous push-ups there had to be an enormous amount of push-ups. Beyond you, but all of you, I think you had some fun along the way.
That was probably the most coherent thing of all. That was from the movie Liar, Liar,
yes,
Jim Carrey.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I think that's what we get with the Joe Biden speech. It's just bizarre. It's not once, but now it's a regular occurrence where the president seems to have a hard time keeping his balance. Look, I'm a little sympathetic with this. The older I get, the less confident and sure-footed I am because I have a bad knee and it just is one of those things. But, you know, he had a near catastrophic fall in Japan when he was over there for the G7. And yesterday at the Air Force Academy speech, he's finished his speech and he's walking off. This is what happens. I mean, the man is 80 years old. You have to worry about him falling and breaking a hip or something really bad. I'm surprised he didn't get hurt worse. But
and that's where my heart hurts for him.
Yeah.
Because it truly does make me sad for him that it happened. It happened. There's TV cameras everywhere. Everybody captured it. And you know that's what's going to be lead now.
Right.
Unless something really catastrophic happens. That's what's going to lead our news, our national news.
Well, it won't be the content of his speech because we couldn't make out what that was. So it's going to be the fall and the tumble. Then, by the way, he got back to the White House and coming out of the helicopter, bumped his head getting out of there. That was, but the big question, when he walked from the helicopter after bumping his head, he said that it was all a sandbag. He said he got sandbagged. We have exclusive content to indicate that maybe it wasn't just a sandbag. Let's watch. Let's look at this. You see, he may have tripped over. The vice president is pointing. Did she trip him?
She could have.
Is that what this is about?
Just a quick arm.
That's right. She's a heartbeat away, and she figured, well, I could expedite this whole thing. I'll trip the old guy up and have him go down on his face and
there
do a
may be
pretzel.
some strategy going on in that White House after all.
As George W. Bush would say, maybe some strategery happening in there.
Indeed.
Very well could be. Anyway, it was pretty bizarre. Let's remind everybody to be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Be sure to like the page and to share it with other people. Let's go to some questions, because I bet we have some by now.
Oh, not only do we, and so many super chats today. It's almost like a competition.
Oh, good.
So here's one. I've got to mention this, that Rob379 making a statement that it might have been Trump. Until we showed you what we showed you, it might have been Trump under the podium who tied Biden's laces together.
Ooh,
was that possible?
Possible, yeah, of course.
All right, Soup Hack is asking today, the question is, who is running the White House if Biden is being propped up on drugs so that he can stand up? Who is doing this to America? That
is a great question, and I don't think we really know. You know, we've thought for a while that it's some of the old Obama people that have come into the Biden White House, and I still think that is probably where most of the policies are being run from the old Obama team, but they keep a pretty low profile. Yeah. It's like they don't want us to know who they are or what they're doing.
All right, another super chat. Stephanie Ellis writing a question today. I heard that Trump supports abortion in some situations more than just the life of the mother. What is his actual stance on abortion? Do you know?
He has been, without doubt, the most pro-life president we've ever had. The first ever that speak at the March for Life. The first ever that appointed people who are strictly pro-life to the courts. And I know that he has said to the health of the mother. I've not heard other exceptions from him. Now, if he has them or he's come to them, but a lot of people think that his abortion position maybe wasn't authentic. I heard him personally discuss when he became pro-life, and here's what happened. It was a number of years ago. He had been a pro-choice person, typical, you know, kind of New Yorker mindset, and very close friends of his were going through a pregnancy, and the doctor had urged the couple to abort their baby. said the baby had a strong possibility of birth defects and there could be some significant issues. And the doctor really all but said, you just need to do this. And the couple refused. And they said, no, that's wrong. You know, this is our child. This is not just, you know, a car that had some defects and we're going to cancel the order. Doesn't work like that. And even Trump was thinking, well, maybe they should go through the abortion. Well, they didn't. Turned out the kid was born, he was fine, and Trump watched him grow up and become an extraordinary young person and go to college and be as normal as any kid there was. And it had a huge impact, and that was the turning point for Donald Trump. He said that was the time when, through the witness of this couple, friends of his, who made the very deliberate decision. And they did it because, as they said to him, this is a baby, this is a child, this is not just a glob of tissue and cells. And so that was his epiphany for his being a strong believer in the sanctity of life.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to read this really quickly. Stud 467-111-524. Don't need to remember all of that, but this is the question, Governor. Who will Laura and George Bush endorse in the Republican primary nomination? Do you know?
I don't. You know, they typically have stayed out of the primary. Obviously, they supported Jeb,
right?
And they didn't like Trump, and they were pretty vocal about that. But I doubt they will get openly and actively involved in the primary. They might,
okay,
but I don't think so.
Okay.
To his credit, I will say this. Bush has not tried to be a player in the party and manipulate or run things since he left office.
Okay. All right. Good answer. David White is writing today another super chat. This is more of a comment. Mr. Rogers said, only a girl can grow up to be a mommy, and only a boy can grow up to be a daddy. You are very special, and so am I. Remember the good old days.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Rogers would be canceled today. His show would be taken off the air because how dare him say that only girls can be mommies.
Yeah.
I mean, most of us know that that's true.
Right.
But truth doesn't matter anymore. It's how we feel, what we think, what we believe. And that takes precedence over scientific reality. Let's do another one, and then we'll go back to some video.
Absolutely. Captain Jim is asking, what do you all think about the Chinese robbing the ship graves from the Second World War and the other countries' waters? Do you know anything about that?
Frankly, nothing surprises me about what the Chinese do anymore. I think that they, you know, we talked about the axis of evil, and I remember George Bush, I think he used that term, and Ronald Reagan spoke of the evil empire when he spoke about Russia. But China is the evil empire of our day, and they do evil things, and that does not surprise me. Disgusts me, but does not necessarily surprise me. This week, I want to go to a couple of videos. John Kirby, who was at the podium at the White House, I guess maybe they needed a competent adult to be there instead of Karine Jean-Pierre. This is a fascinating response. He didn't really deny it. You could tell he was just taken aback by the question about what about the majority of Americans who think the president is corrupt.
53% of the public, including a fourth of Democrats, believe, quote, Joe Biden was involved with his son in an illegal influence peddling scheme. So what do you say to the majority of Americans who believe that the president is himself corrupt?
Wow. Can I take that question?
The president has spoken to this. The president has spoken to this. And there's nothing to these claims.
We shall see, John. We shall see. The president really hasn't spoken to it. And when he has spoken, he's lied about it. He said his son Hunter did nothing wrong. And he said he didn't know anything about his son's business. And we know that is simply not true. Totally not true. Steve Doocy, Fox News, asked Joe Biden about his campaign strategy, the fact that he hasn't done any real campaign events. And you can see how interested Joe Biden is in responding to that.
President, how's the re-election campaign going? Because we haven't seen you on the campaign trail yet.
You haven't?
Not at an official campaign rally. No, why not?
That's his answer. It's like, you haven't? Oh, yeah, I have no idea if I've been out there or not. And he just walks away smiling. So there you go. Also, back at the White House press room, John Kirby was confronted by James Rosen. He used to be at Fox. He's independent now. And it's interesting. He just kind of wants to know, how come this administration won't say that China and Russia are evil nations? And it's a concern. And you can tell it's not a question that Kirby is comfortable with.
If you have governments that are running concentration camps or launching unprovoked wars where hundreds of thousands of people are being killed and the President of the United States calls the leader of that regime a war criminal, I don't see what it is that prohibits you from calling a spade and saying these are evil regimes, which you refused to do in our earlier colloquy.
Well, I appreciate your advice on policy, and I'll take that back, James.
I'm sure you will, and they will listen carefully, without a doubt. Let's take a couple of questions. We've got some very fascinating videos we'll end up with, but what else are we hearing from?
Very first super chat from this particular viewer today. So hello to Bowie, who is watching and participating. With all the illegals pouring into this country, Governor, should all states make it mandatory to present the proper ID whenever requested by all law enforcement officers in order to start the deportation?
I guess I'm wondering, is he saying that anytime there's an encounter with the law enforcement, present an ID? I mean,
yes,
we pretty much do that anyway.
Been requested by all law enforcement officers in order to start the deportation.
I mean, I think if I understand the question, the answer would be yes. Because every time any of us are stopped, whether we're pulled over for speeding or a turn signal light out or whatever.
It's the first thing that's asked.
First thing. Driver's license.
Registration.
Registration, insurance.
Yeah.
Sure. That's a law. I don't have a problem with an officer asking me for that because, quite frankly, I don't want unlicensed drivers. I don't want uninsured drivers.
Right.
I don't want people who are not paying their car tags because that means the rest of us have to pick it up for them. So I never resent that. And it's not an intrusion. The driver's license doesn't really give away anything of a great personal nature. So why shouldn't we be asking those questions?
Yeah. Fair enough. Lisa Gill asking, why can't we, the people, overthrow this sham of government? We have no other hope.
Well, there is a way we can overthrow it. It's called an election, and it's the only legal way in which we have to change our government. There is no other legal means to do it. We can't do it by force. That really does get into the issue of insurrection, which, by the way, is not what happened January 6th. That was no insurrection. Nobody was trying to take over the government that day. And I always found that just absurd. But always the best way to take over the government, quite simple, vote differently. That's the way.
Okay. Purple Haze asking, how do we remind the government who their bosses are? Kind of ties into that.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think the simple answer goes back to that, fire them at the election. I mean, it really does have an impact. When a long-term incumbent actually loses an election, shockwaves get sent. Eric Cantor was the second in power in the Republican House back when Paul Ryan was the Speaker. And Eric's a nice guy, congressman from Virginia, but he was going all over the country doing national things, and he wasn't taking care of business in the district. And he ended up just in a shock. He got beat. And nobody saw that coming except the people who were in his district who didn't see him coming. They didn't see him coming around. He was never there for them. And they said, well, okay, we need to hire somebody that knows how to get to the district. They fired him, and they hired Dave Bratt, political science professor. So it was a shocking upset. It sent shockwaves throughout the Republican caucus because they thought if Eric Cantor, with as much power and influence, with as much money as he had raised, if he can get defeated, none of us are safe. And then that kind of fizzles down and people forget about it. But the best way to remind them, knock off a powerful incumbent. Has a huge impact. Okay, I want us to look at a couple of things. If you're not already disgusted with what Disney has become, and I'm done with Disney. They now have one of the people welcoming the guests to Disney. It is a biological male dressed in a dress as a fairy godmother at Disney. Now, if you're taking your kids to Disney, and you're trying to just teach them the right and wrongs of life, imagine trying to explain this later when this is the first person you see.
So my name's Nick. I'm one of Fairy Godmother's apprentices. I'm here to shop you around and make all your selections for the day.
I know what my kids would have said had that been the case when they were little. Daddy, how come that woman has got a big mustache? Or how come that man is wearing a dress?
Right.
And they would have said it very loudly.
Yes.
It would have been a very awkward thing. But I guess we're supposed to just think that that's normal. Well, it isn't normal. It is not at all. Here's another one from MSNBC, that to boycott Target, according to MSNBC, is terrorism.
When Target caves into this, then it says that the moment you threaten the employees of even a very large corporation, you get to control its policies. This is economic terrorism, literally terrorism, creating fear among the workers and forcing the corporations to sell the things you want and not sell the things you don't.
Okay, let me get this straight. So if you're a parent and you take your little child into Target and they're advertising tuck-friendly clothes, for those of you that are the uninitiated, that means that a biological male will try to hide his maleness by a certain garment that is called tuck-friendly. I'll leave the rest to your imagination. It's disgusting, quite frankly. And you have clothes that are for 3- and 4-year-olds that talk about what it is to be queer. I mean, I don't know why anyone thinks that that's something that is appropriate for a little child. Mm-hmm. And so people are saying, I'm not going to Target anymore. This guy says that if you decide to take your business elsewhere, it's literally terrorism. I would suggest that if we're going to get into language, then what Target is doing is literally pedophilia. It's putting off on little children sexual content for which they are totally unprepared to process. Mm-hmm. Absolutely crazy. Mm. Every now and then, though, we're going to end today on this lovely note. There was a Swedish dance show, and a couple of people decided that they would just come up and do their transgender protest at this dance show. What they weren't anticipating was that there was a jib camera. A jib is like on the crane. People not in television may not think about this, but a lot of television cameras, we have 2 of them in our studio. And the jib is on a crane. It can move all over the place. And so when these protesters came out, leave it to the jib operator to take care of business. Let's watch. I need to make a correction. They were not transgender activists. They were climate change activists. Well, they had their climate changed.
Yes, they did.
The jib just came and knocked both of them to the ground.
Something that never happens on a Huckabee show.
No, we don't have protesters. But you know what? If we ever do, I'll hope the jib operators are
ready to go
to the moment and knock them to the floor and give security time to go and pick them up and cart them away. Be sure to leave your questions in the comments section even after the show. Be sure, if you have not, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and click the notification bell so that we can let you know when there's going to be content coming.